I love the base fossil format. A lot of the people that watch my channel are here exclusively for base fossil decks, and sometimes you get sick of seeing Rain Dance, Wigglytuff, Damage Swap over and over again, these big deck archetypes. Sometimes you just want to play in the format with a deck that's fun and simple. One type of deck building I've been doing lately and have been enjoying immensely is to take the RPG elements of the mainline games and make theme decks based around different trainer classes. So I'm going to be taking a quick break from the regular programming on the channel and just rapid fire a bunch of these theme decks based around trainer classes. The first of which is the Bird Keeper. Because the format is base fossil, what I'm doing is going and looking at all of the instances of a Bird Keeper in red, blue, and yellow, and determining what type of Pokemon they used, what can I really make work into an actual usable deck. What I've come up with is basically a mini format within base fossil that lets you role play as different trainers and lets you use Pokemon that would otherwise be unusable or would just never see play. So let's get into it. As with most of these trainer classes, the pool of Pokemon is going to be a little bit limited. With the Bird Keeper, probably would have expected Pidgeotto to be in here. Maybe throw in a Pidgeot, but I really wanted to stick more with Farfetch'd, Doduo, Dodrio, Spearow, and Fearow, which are all Pokemon that the Bird Keeper uses within game. Farfetch'd is a great first turn attacker. There's a reason that it was part of the very first Haymaker build, because dealing 30 damage for 1 energy that early in the game can be devastating to your opponent if you actually hit that coin flip. With Leak Slap and some plus powers, you could just knock out any basic Pokemon you wanted to, as long as it wasn't a big basic. Because we're using exclusively flying types here, the whole deck is going to be full of colorless Pokemon, meaning that you can utilize double colorless and actually get off those 3 energy attacks on turn 2. You're going to be up against a lot of energy removal, so you do want to be careful when you're actually playing those double colorless energy. You want to make sure it's worth it, because they are high risk for just being discarded. Spearow and Fearow are 2 of those Pokemon that you rarely see. Like, they're easy to forget about, honestly, that they're even in that jungle set. They make pretty good early game attackers. Like I was saying with double colorless energy, Fearow can be pretty dangerous early game. It's just that there were so many other Pokemon that could attack faster. There were better colorless Pokemon. There were better stage 1 flying type Pokemon, which you're going to see here with Doduo and Dodrio. Usually Dodrio would make its way into decks just to sit on the bench and utilize its Pokemon power, which reduced the retreat cost of all other Pokemon by 1. In this deck, that's not really gonna matter, because Farfetch'd is the only Pokemon that even has a retreat cost in this deck. Instead, the focus on Dodrio here is gonna be using that Rage attack. Rage can be pretty effective because you can drop a double colors on there, start using it in kind of a surprise way, a turn ahead of when your opponent would normally expect you to be able to use Rage, and it's going to make them second guess putting a bunch of damage counters on you if it's not just going to straight up OHKO you, because you're going to be able to hit back pretty hard with a Rage attack if you are not completely knocking out a Dodrio. Normally it would be very worrisome that the entire deck is weak to Electric, because you would expect to see a lot of Electabuzz, but if you're kind of playing within just this little theme deck format, you're not going to see a lot of Electabuzz because not a lot of trainer classes actually had them. What actually stands out more is that fighting type resistance, which is going to come in handy against some other classes you may have guessed I was going to do that might use Machop and Geodude, Onix. Because all of these theme decks are going to be within base fossil, the trainer support is going to be pretty much the same across all of them with slight variations. Like on this one, I'm running full draw power, full play set of Bill and Professor Oak, which is pretty uncommon for me. I don't like to use a full play set of Professor Oak because it's just going to deck you out really fast. But for this build, I found it was really useful because you are attacking for pretty big damage on turn 1 with Farfetch'd, so you want to make sure you get a Farfetch'd. You want to make sure you can get as many Pokemon as possible, as fast as you want. That way you can interchange them and kind of let them sponge attacks, because all of them have free retreat, so it's going to be able to move them back and forth. That full-on draw power is going to let you get all the cards you need very quickly. Get a hand full of double colorless energies, hopefully. That way you can get off those larger attacks very quickly before your opponent starts dropping those energy removals and kind of screwing around with your strategy. One way to help with that is going to be with Mr. Fuji. When you get a Pokemon that just like all the energy's been discarded off of it, it's just knockout bait at that point. Just play a Mr. Fuji and return it to your deck, deprive your opponent of taking that prize. Like I've said a bunch of times already, all these Pokemon have free retreat, so it's no problem getting a Pokemon with a bunch of damage counters on it onto the bench. That way you can Fuji it up. Gust of Wind is going to be in here just for moving your opponent's Pokemon around in favorable ways, getting those easy knockouts, which is going to be pretty important for this deck. A lot like Haymaker, you're just wanting to get the easiest knockouts possible, and so Gust of Wind is going to be the best way to do that. Plus, it's a bird deck, so you got to include a full playset of Gust. Even though in Gen 1, Gust wasn't even a flying type move. A lot of people forget that. Full playset of plus power to just keep in your hand and hold until you really need them. With this deck, you want to hold on to those plus powers, because if you're using a drill pack on a Pokemon that has 60 HP, you want to be able to go ahead and get that knockout, drop a couple plus powers down on there, recycle them a little bit with your item finders. The only problem you might run into there is if you get hit with a Lass and you have to discard them, which brings up another interesting point, that Lass got its own trainer card, but none of the other trainer types really did. Well, I guess Gambler did, but the card art doesn't actually show the trainer, just has dice. Got your full playset of double colorless energy, which is going to be the main big energy in your deck. It's what's going to help you get attacks off a lot quicker and hit harder a lot earlier in the game. And the rest of the energy doesn't matter because it's a colorless deck. There's a lot you can do here with the trainer base of the deck. I know it's not super spectacular. It's really just a framework that I found to work really well just in playtesting against other theme decks. As with all the other decks I post, you can fiddle around with the trainer base, add some things, just completely replace certain cards depending on your own playstyle and what you prefer. Other cards that fit the theme of the deck would of course be the Pidgey line, but I thought it was a little too complicated to try to include a Stage 2 in this deck. I think it runs a lot smoother and a lot better with just Farfetch'd and then a couple of lines of Stage 1s. Plus, I feel like I've already talked about Pidgeot way too much on this channel, way more than it deserves. And in-game, you never really encounter a bird keeper that uses a Pidgeot. That's not necessarily going to keep it out of this deck, but if you want to remain a purist in your theme decks, then yeah, Pidgeot doesn't really fit in. You could go with Pidgeotto though. If you wanted to play as a full transcended bird keeper, you could go and include legendary birds in your build as well. Because all the other Pokemon are colorless, you could basically make a potpourri deck out of it if you wanted to. If you wanted to include all of them, that would be a real super challenge. One of the failed theme decks that I tried to do was like kind of a joke Power of One deck that included all 3 legendary birds and Lugia, and it is stupidly difficult to pull off, especially in this format, which doesn't have rainbow energy or any energy support cards like Porygon 2. If you did want to include legendary birds in your bird keeper deck, you would have to include plenty of copies of energy retrieval and energy search in that deck. But hey, that's the Bird Keeper deck. Let me know what you thought about it. Let me know what your favorite trainer class is. It might actually pop up in the next few days. Stay tuned to the channel for some more vintage Pokemon TCG content. And until next video, bye.